Welcome friends to another Dune video. Today we go over the life of Alia Atreides as shown in the Dune Encyclopedia. Her mind and her life was changed forever when her mother Jessica took the water of life, and so Alia was born. This child was fully aware of herself and had the ancestral memories of a reverend mother. The child would cry but then look around the room as if it was taking everything in. The Fremen were cautious around her. The Dune Encyclopedia tells us by the time she could walk, only 8 months after her birth, she was exercising their water discipline as thoroughly as any adult Fremen among them. Her first words to her godmother and nurse were not the nonsense syllables the Fremen women would have expected from a baby, but a recognizable sentence, "I love you, hurrah." The stature of her family with the Fremen tribe stopped her from being made to undergo the test of possession, where the one birth mind can be overwhelmed by and taken over by the ancestral memories. That is what is feared to happen to those who have those memories in their minds. During the events of the first Dune novel, Alia Atreides allowed herself to be captured, so when her brother attacked Arrakeen to take it back from House Corrino, she was already in the heart of it with the Emperor and the Baron Harkonnen. There, she not only unnerved all three people around her of note, she now wanted to know where her brother, dubbed Muad'Dib, was. The Baron seized her, believing her weak, but she struck him with a poisoned needle, and the Baron died in moments. After this, Alia felt isolated from those around her. Even her brother was not a preborn, and so couldn't understand her perspective. Jessica provided little help, and in another way, she was never alone. As the Dune Encyclopedia explains, maintaining an individual identity amid the barrage of memories was a constant drain, made more difficult by Alia's part in her brother's legend. She made her own legend and became Saint Alia of the Knife, the divine huntress who sought out the faithless, who could not be deceived. When her brother went into the desert to die, she became regent and saw to the care of his children. And just a side note, Chinehead died in childbirth, which is why she is not around. The children are twins, Leto and Ganima. Alia ordered the deaths of those who had conspired against her brother, including the Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Mahayam, who Paul had specifically ordered was not to be touched. Now an adult herself, she married the Duncan Idaho Gola. As the Dune Encyclopedia paints it, the marriage ceremony was performed before an audience of hundreds of thousands of imperial subjects in the capital city of Arrakeen, as befitted the bride's rank. But the ceremony was unfamiliar to most of the watchers. Ali had chosen to observe the Fremen rites, omitting only those sections of the ritual which involved removing her crysknife from its sheath at her waist. She was still too much under the Fremen influence to unsheath a crysknife before a crowd of them, and already adept enough a politician to realize how such an action would have alienated the people around her, and thus her power base. As time passed, the demands of her memories became stronger. Bene Gesserit and Zinsuni rituals and litanies helped her find strength to not be overtaken by these voices, but they grew stronger still, and it affected her reign as regent, and it became that she had to have the twins in her care. Jessica was on Caladan, and Stilgar listened to Alia, at least for the moment. She knew the twins were preborn. She had a lot in common with them, in fact. The strain of everything began to take its toll on Alia, and the voices she heard were overwhelming. To not lose herself to the noise, she made a deal with her grandfather, the Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, and with him, allied, she could quieten the voices. And time moves onwards. Jessica came to look into her daughter at the behest of the Bene Gesserit, and she saw from her behaviour that she was slipping into a state of abomination. Jessica became a captive of House Corrino around this time, and it was said that Paul's daughter Ganima would be married to the heir of the Corrinos, Faradin, and Jessica also trains him in some Bene Gesserit ways. Alia tried to have Gurnhalleck assassinated, and when her husband died, Stilgar took Leto and Ganima off her to his siege for safety, and the Baron, who was there to aid her, began to lose himself to his old lusts. And so, despite her eventual success in securing Irulan and Stilgar in her dungeons and in persuading Ganima to feign acceptance of Farad'n, she had spread herself too thin. When Leto II, now protected and strengthened by his sand trout skin, arrived at Alia's temple, he faced an adversary he could now overcome. In spite of her legendary prowess at hand-to-hand combat, she was subdued by Leto. Alia exerted the force of her own personality one final time. In spite of the protests of her inner voices, she chose to take her own life rather than to submit to a Fremen trial of possession. As she flung herself to the temple courtyard, she performed her first independent act in years, and so ended the tragic tale of the Regent's reign and Alia's life. And that, friends, is where I will end today's video.